Welcome back, children, to the fourth part of Class 10, Chapter 1, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe. If you remember, children, in the previous part, we have covered with the topic the age of revolutions between 1830 and 1848. In that, we have seen how the liberal revolutionaries they revolted against the conservative powers. The Greek War of Independence between 1821 and 1832. Then the development of nationalist feelings through art, poetry, and stories and musics. Then the incidences of hunger and hardships, how it led to the popular revolt or the people's revolt in 1830s. And at the end, we came across with the Frankfurt Parliament convened in the Church of St. Paul. But different disagreements led to the disband of the Frankfurt Parliament. Today, in the fourth part of our chapter, we will see the making of Germany and Italy, that is, their unification. So first let's see or understand whether in Germany can the army be the architect of a nation. Children, if you remember, till now we have seen we have been coming across or we have been seeing the concept of nationalism in association with democracy, with freedom. But after 1848, in Europe, the concept of nationalism or the concept of a nation state got carried away from its association. The nationalist feelings, the sentiments were just used by the conservatives for promoting the state power and achieving their political dominance over Europe. In 1848, we have seen how the nationalist feelings were widespread among the middle class Germans, how they tried to unite the various regions of the German Confederation into a nation building. But this process, the liberal initiatives, were repressed by the combined forces of monarchy, the military, and the landlords of Prussia, who were also called as Junkers. Now this is an image of a Junker. Prussia played a very important role. It took on the leadership of the movement for German unification under its chief minister Otto von Bismarck. He was said to be the architect of the unification process because under his leadership, the small empires were brought together to form a strong nation state. This process was carried out with the help of Prussian army and bureaucracy. Otto von Bismarck was considered to be the most capable minister, but he never favored liberalism nor democracy. In fact, he used military expeditions in the unification process. 3 wars were fought over 7 years with Austria, Denmark, and France, in which at the end Prussia got victory and thus could complete the process of unification. Then, in January 1871, the Prussian king, Kaiser William I, was proclaimed the German emperor in a ceremony held in Versailles. On 18th January 1871, an assembly comprising of the ministers of Prussia, including the chief minister Otto von Bismarck, the princes of the German states, the representatives of the army, all were gathered in the palace of Versailles to proclaim the new German Empire headed by Kaiser William I of Prussia. In the process of nation building in Germany, we could see one important thing, and that was the contribution of Prussia. Or we can say the dominance of Prussian state power was demonstrated in the nation building of Germany. Now, as soon as Germany was unified, some reforms were brought in for the betterment of the population there. That is, a strong emphasis was placed on modernizing the currency, banking facilities. Not only that, but also on legal and judicial systems in Germany. In fact, Prussian measures and practices became a model for the entire Germany. So, in general, if we speak, German unification was possible due to the military expeditions. Now, if we talk about the unification of Italy, first of all, we have to understand how or what was the structure of Italy. So let us understand that Italy was divided into various dynasties. Now, if you observe this map, children, this map is of Italy, but the states there, they are divided, right? The states of Italy, they were divided into different dynastic states and the multinational Habsburg Empire. Basically, during the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states. Now, if you see here, the north was under the Austrian Habsburg. The center, if you see here, it was under the control of the popes, and therefore it was called as Papal States. The southern region was under the dominance of the Bourbon kings of Spain, whereas only the Sardinian Piedmont was ruled by an Italian princely house. So children, this is how the different states of Italy were scattered, and even the Italian language that was spoken in these regions were different from each other, and that was because of many regional and local variations. Now children, if you remember, in our earlier parts of the chapter, we had spoken about Giuseppe Mazzini. He never wanted Italy to be scattered in this way. So he wanted to put together a coherent program of a military Italian republic. He had carried out many revolutionary activities along with other revolutionaries and had formed a secret society called Young Italy in order to fulfill his goal of nationalism and liberalism in Italy. But since these revolutionaries were suppressed by the conservative monarchs, it led to the failure of the revolutionary uprising in 1831 and 1848. Now at this time, the responsibility of the unification fell on Sardinian Piedmont, which was ruled by King Victor Emmanuel II. He came to a conclusion that the Italian states can be unified only through war, and this will further lead to the economic development and political dominance. Similar to the German unification in Italy too, the chief minister Cavour led the movement to unify the regions of Italy. Count Camillo de Cavour was a chief minister of Sardinia Piedmont. He was neither a revolutionary nor a democratic. Like other wealthy and educated Italian elites, he too spoke French much better than the Italian language. He was well known for his diplomatic tactics. So, in 1859, through a tactful diplomatic way, Cavour joined hands with France, and Sardinia Piedmont could successfully defeat the Austrian forces. Another important thing that can be noticed here was, apart from the regular troops or the armed forces, a large number of armed volunteers also participated under the leadership of Giuseppe Garibaldi. He, along with his volunteers, marched into South Italy and the kingdom of the two Sicilies. They could win these regions due to the support of the local peasants, because they wanted to drive away the Spanish rulers, that is, the Bourbon kings. Gradually, they could unify the states. Then, in 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed as the King of United Italy. Now you must be thinking, who was Giuseppe Garibaldi, right? He came from a family who was engaged in coastal trade and was also a sailor in the merchant navy. But basically, he was an Italian general and a nationalist who was also said to be a Republican, because he wanted to unify the Italian states. So, in 1833, he met Giuseppe Mazzini and joined the Young Italy movement. In 1834, he participated in the Republican uprising in Piedmont. But the uprising was suppressed and Garibaldi had to run away to South America. There, he had to lead a life of exile till 1848. Then, just now children, we had seen about 1860s expedition, which was also popularly known as Red Shirts. In 1867, an army of volunteers was led to Rome by Garibaldi to fight the last obstacle to the unification of Italy, and that was the Papal States. In 1870, during the war with Prussia, France had to withdraw its troops from Rome, and then the Papal States were finally joined to Italy. But children, these conditions were not the same for Great Britain. There it had to face a strange case. In Britain, the formation of the state was not due to any upheaval or any revolution. So what exactly was the condition? Here we have to understand that there was no British nation before 18th century. It was basically inhabited by the English, Welsh, Scot and Irish. Now all these people, they had their own cultures and the political traditions. As the English nation grew in wealth and power, it could show its influence over the other nations of Ireland. How these changes took place? So first of all, understand that the English Parliament had seized power from monarchy in 1688. And as they were increasing their influence, they passed the Act of Union in 1707 between England and Scotland, and it resulted in the formation of United Kingdom of Great Britain, which meant England could impose its influence over Scotland. As a result, its distinctive culture and political institutions were systematically suppressed. The Catholic clans that inhabited the Scottish Highland suffered terrible repression whenever they tried to assert their independence. They were forbidden to speak their Gaelic language. They were not allowed to wear their national dress, and a large number of them were forcefully driven out of their homeland. Similar situation could be seen in Ireland. Ireland was divided between Catholics and Protestants. There, England helped Protestants of Ireland to establish their dominance over a largely populated Catholics. Whatever the Catholic revolts took place was suppressed. Similar revolt was carried away by Ulf Thorne. He had formed a group called United Irishmen in 1798. But since English was very powerful, they suppressed such revolts against them. And finally, in 1801, Ireland was forcibly incorporated or merged with the United Nations. In this way, a new British or a new Britain nation was formed through the propagation of a dominant English culture. The symbols of the new Britain, that is the British flag, or we can say Union Jack, the national anthem, God Save Our Noble King, then the English language were actively promoted, and the other older nations could survive only as subordinate partners in this union. I hope, children, the topic of making of Germany and Italy and the nation state of Great Britain is crystal clear to you all. In the next part, we will further understand about how the nation was visualized and also about nationalism and imperialism. Till then, have a good day and goodbye.